I'm Will Box of Sonoma Compost. I'm soil scientist and co-owner here. We process the yard trimmings for Sonoma County, about 100,000 tons per year. What we stand in front here is our raw material starting pile. For composting, it's important that we have first of all the right particle size, so we get enough porosity in the pile. So we don't want to be too fine nor too coarse. What we have out here is material that is ground to about 2.5 inch minus, so the larger pieces are about 2.5 inches, and then from there on down. When building a pile, you want to make sure that you have the right size. For backyard composting, for instance, at least 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet. That allows the heat to build up inside the pile. Taking account though that this material starts shrinking quite rapidly, so building the pile a little bit bigger is a good thing to do. When we start the pile, we have to make sure that we have, besides the right particle size, also the right combination of food in there. That's the carbon and nitrogen. We're shooting for about 30 to 1. That means 30 parts of carbon. That is your woody material, your dried weeds, leaves, and 1 part of nitrogen, which would be your lawn clippings, fresh weeds, and your kitchen scraps. So when we have the right blend out here and the right moisture content and the right size, this pile should heat up naturally. And so if I pull this here aside, right here, this is hot. I can't even touch in there, it's hot. Temperature in here is probably around 150 degrees right now. The pile decomposes, the pile shrinks. So the pile that I just stood next to, we started about 7 feet tall. Right now this has shrank to about 4.5, 5 feet already. The difference that we see is that the color starts getting darker and we start to see less and less of the native material in here. This is still on the fiber side, so this is not quite ready for screening in our case, so it's not finished compost yet. So after the composting process comes to an end, we'll see that the compost becomes very fine. It becomes soil-like. We do not recognize the plant parts in it anymore. The material is very, very fine. Has an earthy smell to it. And the temperature is not too high anymore. I can put my hand in here and not burn it. So let's talk a little bit about the moisture content. Optimum moisture content for composting is between 40 and 60%. In the spring, we like to get the moisture content on the high side at the end of the rainy season, so that when it starts heating up, that we have already reserve of moisture in there. When we come towards the rainy season, we want to get on the drier side so that the compost actually can absorb the rainfall that is coming in. Now, how do you tell what the moisture content is? Well, I take a little sample like this here, and you see me weaving through it. I want to make sure that nothing sharp punctures in my hand. And I squeeze this material hard. If I would see water running out between my fingers, I know that I'm over 60% moisture content. I open up my hand. If a ball remains and the ball is shiny, I'm between 55 and 60% moisture content. If there's a ball like this here and it's not shiny and I tap in it and the ball remains, that means I'm between 50 and 55% moisture content. If I would have tapped this here and the ball would have fallen apart, I'm between 45 and 50%. If I squeeze it and the ball would have never formed, I'm between 40 and 45%. Unless when I drop it and my hand would feel talky dry, I'm below 40% moisture content. At that point, I'm below optimum composting rate. It's important to maintain the moisture in the compost piles. Throughout the day, we lose moisture. And when you look over the piles out here, you see steam coming off the piles. That happens throughout the day, so we lose moisture continuously. So you have to add moisture back into the piles. We do that with drip irrigation because we're in a windy area out here. At home, you can also do it with a sprinkler system to maintain the moisture content. At the end of the composting process, we want to get a lower moisture content. So here I'm shooting for around 40% or a little bit lower. So when I squeeze this here and I open up the top hand here, there is no ball left over anymore. This is dry material. Still a little bit wet on my hand. I want to keep my microbial activity going on in a finished compost. So I don't want to get completely dry on it, but a moisture content somewhere between 30 and 40% would be ideal. The composting time from about 10 to 14 weeks. In home composting that can be quite a bit longer. It depends on how often you turn it and if you had optimum composting conditions. Turning depends on how fast you want to compost. If you need your compost fast, then you turn it more often, say every 2 to 3 days. You will have compost at that point in about 10 weeks. If you do not need it for several months, then turning the piles every 2 to 3 weeks would be sufficient.